What's up? Welcome back to the Overland Bonfire, a fun little show about overlanding and food, I guess. So,
Food.
I'm CT,
I'm Matt.
and joining us today in the studio is
Jason.
so Jason, who are you? Where are you from? Let these fine folks know a little bit about you.
Wow. I actually lived right on top of this mountain here at one point in time, and that's kind of where we got connected. I'm over in West Virginia now in Lewisburg and run a YouTube show called Mountain State Overland.
Rock on. Yeah. You want to give a little more intro to how you met Jason?
How we met?
Let's hear your version first, and then I'll give you mine.
He randomly called me out of the blue, and then a day later showed up in my garage.
That's the gist of it.
Back when we were actually working out of my garage.
Oh wow!
And that was
like, oh,
it.
shit, you do overland stuff?
Yeah, it was a phone call thinking I was in North Carolina or something. I'm
Very
like,
accurate.
and we started having a discussion about where. I'm like, no, it's Bedford, Virginia. And he's like, where in Bedford, Virginia? Find out that we live like 2 miles apart.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's when Matt was like hiding his location, so nobody knew where to find him.
Mm-hmm.
But it was basically that. I was just kind of looking for, companies to work with and, to showcase. And Blue Ridge Overland Gear was one of the first to kind of pop up, and probably the only on the East Coast manufacturer on the East Coast specific to our market. And like I said, no address, no location, open contact form, submit. You don't know who you're talking to, how to call them. And, I don't know where I came up with North Carolina, but I thought he was in North Carolina, and I sent him a message. He said, yeah, we should get together sometime. And I said, okay. I said, where in North Carolina are you? He replied back and said, oh no, I live in Bedford, Virginia. And I'm like, well, that's where I am, right? I'm in Bedford. Like, this guy can't be cut that far away. And then I said, what's your address? And he still didn't give me his phone number yet. I said, what's your address? And, it's Poly Place, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I pull it up on Google Maps, and literally, like, as the crow flies, 5 miles away.
Wow. That's awesome.
And then the first visit, rolling up, dogs barking, and I knew it was a shed. I knew that's what it was, and just an employee and a half, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And to now a studio.
Let's not go that far. But
yeah,
it's not good.
Studio's a little highfalutin. It's a shed, but
it's another shed. You've come to a different shed. This one somebody else built. I didn't build this shed, so we're at least we've at least moved up some.
Yeah.
Professionals built this shed. I'm not sure that's
we have
better,
like
but
15, 20 people working here now, something like that.
Yeah, 22 has been our max. I think we're at 21 or 19 and a half, something like that.
Yeah. So Jason, you've done
half one's a little
now
more
like
short,
6-7 seasons of the Mountain State Overland trips. You've gone all up the East Coast and now branching out to different places. So I haven't traveled with you in a while. Catch us up a little bit on what you've been up to there.
Yeah, so this year we'll be actually celebrating 10 years of business, right? So when we formed the business in November, it'll be 2014 is when we kind of started. So yeah, definitely been doing it for a minute and having a lot of fun. Yeah, and you know where we've been. I mean, you've been on some of those adventures with us.
I got to go on the Canada trip with them and some of the MSX trips with you and all that jazz. It's good.
Yeah, we
Potts Mountain Jeep Trail.
Yeah, Potts Mountain Jeep Trail. Dropped a camera there. I think I remember that.
Slipped on a wet rock. That was a good time.
Yeah, wild times too. We won't share all of them, but pretty fantastic. So we've been guiding trips since about 3 years into, doing our YouTube show, and it got to the point where people were watching and they said, "Hey, I want to go with you," and we were like, At that point in time, Gabby was a member of the team, and I was talking with Gabby and I said, "Well, how can we do this?" And he was like, "Well, let's just take them on trips." And I was like, "Well, okay." but we enjoy our time too, right? We want go and do our, wild shenanigans and have fun and make memories. So we said, and Gabby had said, well, let's just earmark some dates. Let's try it. And the first year we dumped those out. We dumped 2 of those trips out and on a Black Friday, and they booked in 48 hours. And we were like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, I think we can do this. Let's give it a shot. And the feedback was great. So like part of our year now, 10 years into this is, we earmark a certain number of guided trips. We usually do 6 of them a year. And then we earmark private trips, right? And, or private series. So, YouTube series. So this year will be our 4th year on the Trans-America Trail. We'll be in Colorado filming. And then we're starting a new series called Due North, where we're due to be back in the North. And Ben's going to be building a rig, but okay, 4-wheel drive. And then he's going to take that truck out on 6 adventures and film them where the vehicle is just part of the adventure to get you there. The vehicle isn't the showcase piece. But the vehicle is the mechanism to get you outside because
is Ben doing that trip on his own, or is this
yeah, Ben's filming the whole thing on his
own his own deal.
Man versus wild.
Man versus Ben.
Wild versus Ben.
Wild versus Ben.
The wild versus Ben.
Bears versus
awesome.
Ben. Wolves versus Ben.
Yeah.
Breakdowns versus Ben. That'll be good.
Yeah, Ben's pretty fantastic. He came on board with MSO when we were in Vermont.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, he had done a Land Rover budget build, filmed that all himself, edited all that himself. He works in the film and, movie industry space. And, so he said, we came up with a plan and, he said, let's do it. He's like, I'll come up with the stories. And he's already reached out to, 6 or so different places that he's going to visit. I don't want to tease it too much other than, they're pretty.
He might be coming by here too.
He'll be coming here.
Part of it. That'll be fun.
Yeah, for part of the build series that we'll do, which will launch this kind of Due North series. Ben will be down here outfitting the truck and talking to you guys about Blue Ridge Overland gear.
Well, that'll be fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We miss Ben.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. He's good people. So one of the things that I think sets apart what you do is that you film so much of it and share it with so many people. So over the course of now 10 years doing this, you've gotten really good at like capturing the story no matter what the conditions are, no matter what's happening. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could share with people what your approach is and what you've kind of learned along the way.
Yeah. So the approach in the beginning was always planning a route, do as much pre-planning as we can in advance so we don't have to figure it out along the way. I mean, the fun thing of, this overland adventure travel is adjusting, finding new directions and ways around, different places. But we tried to build a route based on the story we wanted to tell. So, when we were up in New England, we had Rich Ivy join us. You guys know Rich Ivy?
God, do we know Rich Ivy?
Shout out to Rich Ivy. But we had Rich with us on that trip. The story was showcasing, kind of adventures, fly fishing on the Kennebec, and, sharing stories about Pittston. I believe it was Pittston Farm, which is a completely off-grid, sustainable space. So far off-grid, they just don't get power, right? So they create their own. So yeah, we build a route. That's the fundamental piece of, the filmmaking, right? Is the pre-production planning, talking about what the story is, and then trying to execute, right? So, I mean, we've learned a lot. And, I think the biggest takeaway for me when you're working with a team is making sure you're communicating to the people that you're working with what the vision is and what the end product needs to be. Because you can overshoot stuff and just create tons of content that you can edit. But then you still then you struggle with the story, right? So, we don't overly script out, anything. It's just all, kind of like this is today, shooting from the hip, because that's really the best content that you can get.
Yeah. That's those really memorable, oh shit kind of moments. Yeah.
Expectations is another thing that's good. It's communicating what to expect while you're there.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember going to where were we at? We were in Vermont, and we had somebody that hadn't been on any trips before that you were filming, and we rolled into a like a whatever. It's not a convenience store in Vermont. I don't know what it was. Some kind of little store. Got gas, and I think it was raining. You guys went inside. I watched you grab a camera. I literally pulled out my awning at like 11 o'clock, started making lunch, getting my crap together, got chairs sat down, and they all looked at me like I had lost my mind. I'm like, oh, dude, you're going to be here a minute? There's no sense of me in a hurry. Like, you might as well just relax. This is at least a 20-minute, maybe half an hour stop. This is not like run in and grab a sandwich and roll on. We're going to be here. Just enjoy the part that we're going to hang out right here.
Yeah, and you have to listen to everybody.
I think you have to, the people I don't think realize how much time is put in getting footage and what all that takes. So it's like you just have to be able to go, hey, this is not a 200-mile a day deal. This is, if it's rough trails, we're going to make 35, and you just got to relax and be okay with it. And I think that's another thing, that the amount of effort that it actually takes to capture that stuff is huge. I mean, it's not that I ever had to put any in, because I did a lot of sitting, or waiting, but it's a huge amount of effort and admirably a lot of work that people I don't think understand or don't realize how much time and effort is put into getting good video, good usable video.
Yeah, what kind of schedule do you expect out of a day? What kind of mileage do you expect to cover in a shooting day?
Oh, wow. We've I think Rick was on one of our first real trips that we ever filmed. I think my expectations were way too high. Okay. So I think it's good to have a starting point A and an end point B, and however you get there, and execute. If it's a boring experience, film on the way, right? So, film out of the car, film out of the cab, throw a drone up, follow you along. I mean, it's a real challenge to kind of make that interesting. But to answer your question, like, how many miles do you plan for? I mean, based on my experience, especially with the guided trips, because we're constantly paying attention to what everybody's needs are, and we want to balance that, because then we want them to come back.
Yeah.
What we try to do is aim for like around 80 miles in a day, depending upon what the terrain is. I mean, we've crushed 120 miles on a guided trip. When we're on a private team trip, like what we did in New England or what we did in Vermont, we can crush 200 miles, like, no problem. I mean, Hammer Down is all about pedal to the metal and then just going and telling stories along the way, because, we're traveling across the country and in a shorter period of time as we have, which is just like a week typically.
Yeah.
So I think at one point in Oklahoma for this third season of Hammer Down, we had a 250 to 275 mile day, but we also had to film along the way. So we took advantage of those opportunities, had cameras in the car so we could just, throw it out the window, talk to it in front of on the dash or whatever. So it really depends. I mean, if you want to have a good time, don't set your goals too high as far as mileage goes.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, this is why I love doing it, is because I love doing it. If it was to the point where I'm just pushing my team too hard, they get burnt out. They don't want to participate anymore. That's why you left. But this is probably a feel-good time for you, hearing the feedback and the appreciation for what goes into video, right?
No, it was good. Like, I enjoyed being out there. I guess I guess I learned some things along the way. I learned maybe I was more of a city person than I thought I was, unfortunately. No, but too, and I party differently than you guys party and all of that.
So we party different than most.
But I loved what I learned and all of that. Part of it's now I'm married, and so and I'm full time, because that was the other thing too. Was back then I was doing freelance work part time with Matt, and so I had so much more flexibility, and now just being in my own bed more. It's easier. But there was I want to touch on some really cool things that I learned along the way working with you. So one of them is what I asked you, hey, how do you approach getting the content at an overlanding obstacle, river crossing, rocks, that kind of stuff? And I'm gonna give you the short version of what I remember, but then maybe you can expound from there.
Oh, I don't know.
So what you said was capture the before reactions. So if it looks dicey, go, put the camera in people's face and don't be afraid to do that and hit record and say, hey, what's about to happen? What's gonna, and at that point everybody's gonna be confident and they're gonna say, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. It's gonna be great. Then film it happening. And then at the end, as everybody's getting through, film these reactions.
Yes.
And if they got stuck or they broke something, then they're going to be like all embarrassed and they have all this emotion and you get all this fresh reaction. And then when you cut it together, you can juxtapose the two together. Yeah. And you can show their confidence right next to their oh shit.
Yeah.
And it's
I start with the oh shit, so it always works out well for me. I'm like the ultimate pessimist.
It usually leads with
we are going
to
fall for sure. This is going to be terrible. I just want you to know this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad from here on out.
On a scale of 1 to 3, you're going to die.
Yeah. This is all wrong. Hey, look at that. We made it. All right.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point, CT, is that how do you create the audio content, or how do you create the story with, I mean, when I edit, I don't get excited, and I don't think I ever have narrated anything.
Like voiceover,
because I'm always putting the camera in people's face and saying, what do you think? Tell me what's going on.
So you still do all your own editing?
I still do all my own editing.
Okay.
With the exception of Ben doing Due North. He'll do that. So still do all of that. But if you can do what you said, and you can get the before, the after, and then catch all the jumble of mess that's happening in between, that's actually creating the story that you don't have to script out and like have people read and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It makes the editing process that much easier.
And it's so fresh, and it's so like tangible and real. Everybody's real reactions in that moment.
And it's not scripted. It's just like us, like here talking right now. I mean, they're just people talking, right?
Yeah.
So
one thing that I noticed too when we started you explained that, and then we started doing it, is it takes all the pressure off, in the middle of that overlanding obstacle, on like having to get people talking in the midst of it.
Yeah.
You can just film the action. Usually you're doing real work, you're pulling line, you're running a winch, you're like trying to get unstuck, max tracks, all this stuff is happening. Like when you're actually doing that work, I can just sit back and film. I don't have to worry about capturing the story. I already got the before, I'm going to get the after here in a few minutes. And it just makes it really smooth.
Yeah.
And that was really neat.
Well, like on last Great Jeep Trail, when we were on the Potts Mountain Jeep Trail, and John blew a tire off the rim, right?
Yeah.
You were there just taking it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, and
I didn't have to capture any talking.
Didn't have to capture talking because we're talking. You got the boom mic on, or the shotgun mic on. You're capturing the moment. Their story, the audio is going to be kind of good. You can work through it. So yeah. I mean, I think, you can make it as complicated as you want. I know that's just kind of saying that, but, take your people, they're your cast, they're your character. And when it gets uncomfortable, don't be afraid to stick a camera in somebody's face. That was the hardest lesson for me.
Yeah, no, I have that so firsthand. So when we went out west, I was like, I had just got my new camera, A7S Mark II, cool camera, got some new lenses. I'm like, I want to like shoot like crazy, put this thing through its paces. And I did. And I came back with all this beautiful footage, but I didn't capture hardly any real reactions and talking. I didn't create any like story throughput. So the only thing I could make with that at the end of the day was a montage. And I could have done a voiceover of all of it, but that wasn't, my heart wasn't really in that. But that was like a real wake up call for me, again, is like, it's a little embarrassing at first, but keep putting camera in people's faces, keep pressing record, and that's where the real magic happens.
So what do you use for a camera? I mean, now
still Canon, pretty much everything.
Okay.
You've had like 5Ds,
I've got a 5D Mark IV. OK 4-wheel drive just bought a new mirrorless camera that we're playing around with on the OK 4-wheel drive side thing. MSO is not, using that, but that's definitely a step in a very fantastic direction. The quality film that comes out of that.
Nice.
But the 5Ds just do a fantastic job. They're bulletproof.
Do you rent anything, or do you?
We have.
Oh, yeah.
So we rented a Ronin, I think.
Oh yeah, the gimbal. Yeah. That worked out really well. Yeah.
Because then I bought one and you bought one.
Yeah.
So
we're like on the Canada trip, the gimbal worked out so well that we both ended up buying them after.
Yeah. When Ben came with us in Vermont, I think he rented some glass, some lenses.
Yeah.
from borrowed lenses. So that's a really good point. I think, Ben has always said it. Other people in the industry have said it, invest in the body, rent the glass, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're close, we're not really close to borrow lenses here in Bedford or
No,
Lewisburg, West
it's all
Virginia.
mail order. Yeah.
It's all mail order, but that can you can get yourself kind of familiar with that equipment without dumping $6,000-7,000 in camera stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
people are cell phones now, like,
Do really, really well.
yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So it just all depends. I'm really focused on the look of the content that we shoot, and I really want it to look a certain way, the frame rate to be a certain way. But
Yeah.
but
the story is what's most important.
the story is what's most important. So kind of talking through those steps of what you do when you film is the pre-production planning, where we're going to go, how we're going to get there, what we're going to do, how long are we going to be gone. You talked about the production piece of it, shooting on the fly, capturing, the before and after. We've got a guided trips, our 25th guided trip starting tomorrow. And I did storyboard out how I want that, because I want to work towards a format with these guided trips so that we know exactly what to do every day. And we pretty much do by now, but so it's capturing the content while you're shooting, and then the editing process, right? Like, what do you do? What goes through your mind when you're editing? Like,
Oh yeah. Where do I begin?
Where do I begin?
Yes. And I've learned so much. Like, I was really a novice editor when I edited that one MSX video for you, and I've grown so much since then. But talk me through some of that process. What goes through your mind at first? What's like, is there a key that unlocks the whole project? Where do you start? Where do you begin?
It's hard to get started when you aren't in the rhythm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once you get in a rhythm where you're editing, video after video after video, it's easy. When I was doing your first early stuff for Blue Ridge Overland gear, when I had a bunch of projects in the can, like, to work on, I once I got motivated and started doing it, I could crush it. But the hardest part is getting started, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's everything, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's just, the first step, the first whatever, getting out the driveway. Just tell people getting out the driveway is the hardest thing for me.
Yeah.
Once I'm out the driveway, everything's gonna be fine. But I gotta get out of the driveway first. I mean, that's like,
I think waiting for the alarm clock is for me. Like, getting that notification from your family that you need to wake up before your alarm clock, that's never fun for me. But
you talked about just like doing it kind of scene by scene, kind of putting a video together that way.
I do. I'll make a first pass through all my files, usually in my Finder or your directory, and just kind of scrub at things and look and say, this is junk, this is junk. I'll flag everything that I want to import. I'll import everything, and then I'll go through everything, in my editing software and look at it. And then I'll favorite, those sections of those clips so that I know what to pull into my storyline. And then I'll sort all my audio stuff where I'm catching people talk. I'll sort that to one end. I'll sort all my beauty shots to another space, and then I'll shoot typically all my drone shots to another space. And then I'll work with the audio that I have and build the story first.
I remember you talking about that, and when we were going back and forth when I was working that one video, you said, get the audio down first, and even watch it back, not looking at it, just listen to it back, make sure the story is working just in the audio, and that all makes sense. And then worry about the visuals, and then lay your beauty shots on all after that.
Listening to the story, I'll typically close my eyes, tilt my head back, put my headphones on, and just kind of listen to it and be like, oh, okay, I can kind of see where this is going. And typically you kind of know what you want to do. But if you're talking from scratch and doing this, the first, few times, that's a good tip. It's a good exercise.
And even you'll know, hey, is this going too slow in here? Is this going too fast in this part? Does it need a music break? Does it need some breathing room? All that kind of stuff. That's really good. So one of the other big parts to this, to like filming adventures, filming overlanding stuff, is that you're on the road, and like the best shots is when you can see the vehicle drive by, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you do that where you can always get enough shots, from the roadside filming the caravan of vehicles and all?
So what we typically do is we've got kind of a process for keeping the momentum going for our guided trips, right? So that's the execution, and I can go over that in just a minute. But how do you know that you get enough? I don't really know how to answer that, other than it's just kind of, for me, it's kind of a feeling like, okay, we've we've leapfrogged each other so many times, and there's two people in this vehicle, there's one in this one. Okay,
what is the leapfrog? What is that process?
Well, that's what I was going to get into.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So usually I can know that we've been filming for an hour, we've stopped 3 times, there's 3 people running camera, and this is how long it takes, and I can do the math pretty quick in my head to determine, like, okay, I've got enough for this area, maybe because it's boring. Now if it's beautiful and it's fall foliage and like it's perfect time of year, like it's really hard to dial yourself back up, so you end up creating way too much content. It all depends on the energy level of the team. But leapfrogging is a mechanism that we use on our guided trips, to kind of keep the experience moving for these people, because they don't want to stop, set up camera, run back to the truck, drive everybody back, go and do, that's just not fun. Matt did enough of that with us when we first got started.
a lot of
yeah, we were kind of smooth with it. We just throw Ben out and made him huff through all the mud.
Right.
And I know, like Chris Shantz's videos, he's a one-man band. He has to just go run, set up the camera, run back again.
The best video he's ever done is the run back.
I know.
Yeah, he did a video where he just compiled all the running back from his setting up his camera back to his car. Yes.
I mean, maybe I need to do that after eating too much helva and pretzels. Maybe I would benefit from that.
So how do you do it?
Okay, so the way it works is, on the guided trips, we'll just talk about that for an example. We've got 2 guide vehicles per 5 guests. So we only got 7 trucks on this trip. So what we'll do is Eric and I, both vehicles will be up in the front of the pack. We'll drive along. We'll get to a spot that Eric feels like is a good place to pull over. And he'll usually pull over. Keep in mind that Eric at this point is, maybe 5 minutes down the road. So
he went on ahead.
He went on ahead. I'm keeping the group at like 25 miles an hour safe speed, and then Eric's kind of moving on ahead, and he'll find a spot that he thinks looks good. He's looking out his side mirror, looking at his rearview mirror, looking ahead, looking up to see what kind of angle he wants to shoot at. That gives him time to actually to pull over, get the camera set up. And then we drive by, right? So then he ends up in the back of the pack.
Okay.
Once he catches up, what we do is we slow everybody down, have him move into the front of the pack, and then what I'll do is I'll bogey on.
Oh, okay.
So then I'll bogey on, get 5 minutes down the road or so. Sometimes it's like 30 seconds. And then we'll just kind of do that. And once we get the team, or once we get all of our guests kind of in a rhythm, what we'll do is let them kind of guide themselves temporarily, so we can just kind of keep moving ahead of them. So there's one token guest that'll be the kind of the token guide for that little stretch of road, and we'll just let them guide at a 25-mile-an-hour pace, and then we'll just kind of move past.
And so after you filmed something and the whole group is passed, you kind of weave back up through the group.
Yeah, we have them pull over off to the side of the road safely, and then we move around once, and we're communicating, talking on the radio. I think that's the most fun part about the guided trips is the radio chatter. But that's how we kind of manage that, because that's one question that they have when we first start these trips off is like, so what's the filming going to be like? What are we going to do? Are we going to have to stop all the time? I was like, no, we keep everybody moving all the time. Unless it's like so epic.
Just keeping everybody happy and enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless it's like so epic, you're like, okay, this is totally drone worthy, or let me move down here. You guys stop, take a bathroom break, do whatever you got to do, and then we'll tell you when to go.
Yeah. So, another thing you're talking on the radio, another thing that you've been able to capture is those in-cab shots and getting like all of that rolling on GoPro. Talk me through how you accomplish that.
I stick them up and mount them. Like GoPros, I have a love and a very hateful relationship with.
They're finicky.
A little bit of love, a lot of hate. I got the new GoPro 11s, and I think they finally have it dialed in.
Okay. What's new this time on them?
I don't know. It looks better. It's easier to work with. The files are manageable. It's a little more intuitive.
Okay.
The last GoPro I bought was the Hero 5, so this is a big step up for me.
Yeah.
But I knew that it was just, the audio is the worst. So the audio
was always hard with those older GoPros.
It was always hard with those older GoPros, but the audio has gotten pretty good. And now, we use DJI mics, and, you can record on those by themselves. You don't have to have the receiver. So we'll do a clap to start, and then we'll record, and then I can just,
So before you were mounting these little microphones onto your visors and all this stuff. So now you're not even doing that.
No. I mean, I carry the DJI mics with me everywhere I go, just in case, because they'll plug into my cell phone. I can use them on with my GoPros. I can use them on my camera.
Will they plug into your GoPro or no?
They won't plug into the GoPro, no.
Okay.
I mean, I think you can plug them into the media mod.
The part that you actually have on you, it can send wirelessly to a camera, or it can just record itself. So he just, I think correct me if I'm wrong, you just click record to record sound on that device.
Yeah.
Hit go on the GoPro, do a clap so you can sync them later.
Yeah, no, I grasped that concept.
Oh,
I just didn't know if it was possible to actually have them putting it all in one spot. Those of us who are not going to edit the audio and the video and do the clapping and that, you know, because that's not me.
That's not the.
But I could have some pretty angry rants in the car that might be entertaining, you know, on my way to work.
Just an angry black screen.
If I could make it easy, you know.
Yeah, you probably could connect it right into the GoPro. Actually,
maybe I'd start recording some of those.
Very angry black screen.
Myself. Myself mad at the world.
I actually want one of those sets of the DJI mics because they look like they're really, really handy for so many things.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I mean, it moves it, but you know, so natively lacing the audio onto the media content, onto the visual content, right, or the film content, that doesn't happen unless you're plugged into the camera. And then I think you could technically do that with a GoPro media mod, but you
don't have to anymore.
Yeah, you know, so it does a pretty good job in the truck by itself. Okay. If you've got a noisy environment, you got a loud truck with big mud tires, you're going to want to probably carry a mic. But we experimented with all sorts of microphone solutions, and you know, the frustrating part about that is then the little
batteries on the mics,
they die. There's no way to know. And then I'd get home after being gone and filming for like 10 days. And then you're just like, oh my God, we just lost
a
whole day worth of audio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, another thing that I remember you talking about often that turned out really, really well was, you know, start to film early in the morning. You know, so the setting up camp, so the getting ready.
Not early in the morning. You're just saying at the beginning of the day.
At the beginning of
there's
the day.
No early.
Yeah.
There may be some early the night before, or early in the morning. You may end early in the morning, but starting early in the morning is not really Jason's thing. No. I don't think.
So that was always something we tried to do on those trips was, you know, film the morning stuff and making breakfast in the morning, making dinner at night.
Yeah,
again, the startup stuff at the crack of noon.
You know, and all of that adds, I think, to the whole adventure, you know, the whole picture of everything. And that was always really neat.
Yeah, I actually did a solo trip, not this winter, last winter. I knew it was going to snow that night. And so I was like, I just grabbed the camera and then left, got there, realized I didn't have gas to get back. So I went about halfway, got gas before I actually got to camp. Anyway, so I get there and what I wanted to do was I actually just wanted to film like the stuff, like the camp setup, you know, turning on the fireplace in the camper, you know, setting out the MadCon, you know, starting the fire, mixing everything up, and then at the end, like, thanks for watching. Like,
what's a MadCon?
It's that above ground fireplace, like it's called.
Oh yeah. That is pretty slick. That little one, yeah.
But yeah, so I was like, you know, that was kind of fun for me because then I could just like not worry about. The sounds I wanted to focus on were like the metal parts like fitting together and the fire crackling and things like that. So. But I can't remember what the question was at this point.
For sure, you weren't filming the Fueled by Coffee and Hate. That's not what we were going for. That's the only thing I know I got out of that. It was a very, very calming experience for you.
Yes.
Not what my morning rants would be with my GoPro.
I don't remember what the original question was either.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. So anything else about filming adventures and guided trips that you want to add to that? That was a pretty in-depth discussion.
We kind of powered through that.
Yeah, wade into the weeds, I think.
We did a little bit. It's kind of hard not to when you got two guys sitting right beside each other.
But Matt, though, give me then your reactions. What's it like being a passenger on those trips?
Oh, I mean, I have a good time. Like I said, but I just once I figured out that I just needed to relax and, you know, not be in a slower
pace of life.
Yeah. I mean, we're not hurrying to the next spot, and I'm, you know, I just get okay with that. I make sure I got plenty of snacks in the truck, and I can stop, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, man. have fun, you know, eat a little bit.
So
Throw
we
some
did
cheese and
small
crackers.
groups. We did small, like there was like maybe 4 trucks,
4 or 5
5.
probably,
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
so, you know, these big group, you know, you're constantly managing like stop and wait and stuff like that. I mean, most of the terrain that we ever did, I guess I'm only just thinking about Vermont, which is where we were only going like 2.5 miles an hour most of the trip.
If you're like, yeah,
You know,
which was
so,
fine. That was probably one of the
Those
fun
are some-
trips I've been
those
on.
are
That's
some bad
that was a
roads.
good time
Yeah.
yeah.
as far as like non family events. That was a good time, and that was a make 25 miles a day maybe.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, and be setting up camp late.
And we just let Peter talk. The whole
Right.
time. Just let Peter, put the camera on Peter. He'll tell the story.
Right, yeah,
Um,
and then watch him fix his rover while he's
Yeah.
in the
Fiddling
woods.
around.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, don't shut the door so hard. The windows fall off the truck. Why'd you shut the door that hard? I told you not to shut the door that hard. Oh, jeez, now we got to fix the thing.
Yeah, I think, you know, don't be intimidated by the gear. You know, start on iMovie, you know, like use freaking TikTok or like Instagram reels to figure out how to edit or something, right? Like start somewhere and don't be worried about you know, the content that you make. You should always be focused on making the content for yourself first. No matter how well your videos are performing, do the best that you can at what you do, and always, you know, look down the road.
That's one thing I always appreciated about Chris Shantz is Chris Shantz made what he wanted to make and did not give a crap
Didn't.
what was working for everybody else. It was just like, hey man, I'm gonna film me eating lunch, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever. You know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a video that's just me running back. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, like, you know, I always thought that was interesting. And, you know, Chris has taken very little support from other, from vendors and stuff like that. And really, 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 really managed to stay kind of true to that. And you guys have done a nice job at sort of maintaining that, where you watch a lot of them. I think you watch a lot of people in that space that, you know, they're all over the place. They're chasing this now, and they're chasing that, and they're chasing something else bigger, and and then the next thing you know, they're I'm gonna say terrible things. So I'm gonna stop. Well, I mean, the next thing you know, they're you know, I think you run into people that sort of become an icon in their own mind, and you know, and they. And I think they lose what started it, or why they, you know, they lose what made them cool, is what happens. And I mean, I think that's one of the things that Chris and you guys have done a nice job of. You've kept the things that make you interesting. You know, you've kept the things that, like, oh, I would turn on and watch that. And that hasn't gone. You know, if I watched something from Chris from 2 years ago, I watch something from Chris now. If I watch something of yours 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, the production value may have changed, right? But the feel that I get from it is still the same real, oh, this is that's what it's like. You know, I mean, that's really that trip, and that's really what that feels like. And I don't think it's not, I understand that there has to be funding, or else you can't afford to keep doing stuff, but it doesn't feel like it's like suddenly gotten super commercialized, or you know, it's you know, I don't want to use the word sold out, because I don't think that's,
it's not the right word.
No, it's not, because I don't begrudge the guys that are out making money from it. I mean, I think it's great that they've figured out how to do that. So I'm not anti that. I think sometimes there's a point at which a lot of people lose their way in what they originally the reason they kind of originally started it. All of a sudden they've gone off in a different direction. And I think there's a few of them out there that have been able to hold that together for a long time. I mean, you guys 10 years and still going, still doing similar stuff, still have good view rates. You know what I mean? And again, Chris, kind of same thing. Chris is still doing it. Still doing it.
Exactly
50 videos a year, the exact same way, and still has good viewership and good following. And I mean, like, I'm always impressed when somebody can kind of stay true to what the reason that they put something together, the reason they started into an endeavor, whatever that is. But I think it's more interesting in this space, because it's very easily to kind of get sucked into a completely new direction, you know, it's just
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's interesting to watch some of those develop over the last 10 or 15 years. Is
Yeah, and like I mean, like I said, you just gotta. It's got to be fun, I mean, and it's got to
Well,
be you got to
And
be
you do this to
fair.
get to the woods, not just to make
Yeah.
videos to
Well,
get views.
I think I know, Matt, I've told you before, but my real driver in this when I was first getting started was like I was obviously kind of getting into a new hobby, right?
yeah,
But as I started making the videos and started building all these routes in West Virginia and stuff like that, I started to think more about the legacy for my son, and so he could easily, when he gets his driver's license, he could grab his buddies up and say, let's go to
yeah,
wherever, West Virginia, just, hey guys, watch this video that dad did, you can learn where we're going.
yeah,
So I wanted to inspire people, but I'm focused on like what makes me happy and
right,
what can benefit my child. So
yeah. Excuse me. And the thing is, if the thing that I appreciate about that stuff is, if then you like it, then great. And then if a viewer likes it, then great. If a viewer doesn't like it, well, that's okay.
Mhm.
I mean, we build, we build a lot of gear for us. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, this is what fits what we need. And if it works for you, that's spectacular. If it doesn't, you're just not my customer. And I'm okay.
Mhm.
Like, it's, we kind of build things we think are cool, and we don't, we get all kinds of, you should make one of these. Man, not really. Somebody else kind of does that well.
I've done that.
Doesn't
before.
sound like that much fun,
I've done that before.
Well, I mean, everybody
Yeah.
does it, but you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, you're just like, there's other people that do really cool backpacks, and I don't need to make a backpack unless I can make something cool, something I want or I'm interested in.
Mhm.
And I think it's interesting as you watch industries, especially this one, because it's really easy to go all over the place.
Yeah.
Because you can, every few months you can change, or you can develop something that takes you away from sort of the, what your core is, and being able to hold your kind of core, your sort of core beliefs is something that I think very few people, very few companies have been able to do.
Yeah.
And you guys have done a nice job of that, like I said.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been fun. I mean, it was just us when we started.
Yeah.
So pretty awesome.
So, what's next coming up with Mountain State Overland?
Like I said, the due north build, right? So Ben's building something, and he's going to be down here with you.
Yeah.
And then he's going to take it out and explore. That series will probably be out in May. We're going to be in Colorado in August, and then in Mountain West, Overland Expo Mountain West. Got a guided trip starting tomorrow. So first guided trip, our 25th guided trip here.
Nice.
So this is pretty fun. And
where's that? West Virginia?
It's going to be all in West Virginia.
All in West Virginia.
Yeah, we prototype. We're prototyping an extended called a super adventure, where it's twice the time away. Because the realization is, once people are just getting dialed in after about 3 days, so we're like, well, let's add a couple more on. Because it's a very emotional departure. Complete strangers on the first
Yeah.
day, emotional departure, and the realization you got to go back to work on Monday. Well, now we're adding 2 more days on it. So that they can reset their truck and like determine what they really want to take on adventures with
Yeah.
them and stuff
It
like that.
it takes, like on the Canada trip, it was a full 3 days to just go through technology withdrawal until I was like actually present and like just enjoying everything as it came.
Yeah.
And that is a neat space to be in. So that's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
3 days of technology withdrawal.
No.
I don't even. I got nothing. I got nothing.
Stick me in the woods.
I mean, I would miss my phone
Yeah.
for a few minutes. Maybe not. I don't know. It would be a great excuse not to have to answer anything.
Yeah.
Am
Now
I
with
good?
Starlink, you can have technology everywhere.
I know, it's dangerous, right?
I almost brought it here to see if you'd build me a bag for Starlink.
Oh, I mean,
Starlink bag.
I have a Starlink too. I could build one for
Oh,
mine. And then
yeah.
I can, so maybe I need a Starlink bag.
I was
That's not a
searching
bad
all
idea.
over the internet for something. and
There's no
my
Starlink bag?
There's a couple Starlink cases that are just kind of
Huh. Interesting.
And that's how product development works.
That's it.
Because there's no internet in my house. Starlink is the only option.
Yeah, right.
Being no landline or any other way to get decent internet. So
So if people are interested in going on a guide trip and seeing more of what you do, how do they get a hold of you?
MountainStateOverland.com, and you can get everything. We're at MS Overland on YouTube, Facebook, and on Instagram. So, yeah, that's
Awesome.
it.
is Instagram your main? social media vehicle short of YouTube?
Trying to play
I mean,
around with TikTok a little bit. I'm kind of getting into the reels and collaborating, like the bantering
Yeah.
back and forth between accounts. I've been experimenting with that. Those are really fun. It's kind of like creating a short like YouTube video. Like I mean, it basically is. But building a story, sharing it with the people, saying, "Hey, grab me these 3 clips. Let's put it together. Let's see what it does." Those have been doing very good. I feel like I'm finally like back to like maybe understanding a little piece of how they're serving content to people on Instagram until they disrupt that next month. So I'm gonna ride that wave as much as I can over the next 30 days.
You got to. Yep, right.
Yeah.
They changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's done. Nice. Well, good
cool,
deal.
man.
Yep.
Well, yeah. Thanks for
It's really
coming.
good to have
Yeah,
you.
no, I've been looking
Yeah.
forward to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good
We're
deal.
gonna go out and take a look at your truck now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you again in 2 weeks. Go check out Mountain State Overland's videos on YouTube. They're awesome. We'll see you next time.
See ya.